This podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Design. Kiwi is the leader in Oculus Quest and VR accessories. And now you can deck out your device while supporting the podcast.
The Oculus Quest 2 is a great headset, but do you ever find things could be a bit more comfortable, maybe a little safer? Well, we have the solution for you. With lens protectors, controller grips, face covers, head straps, link cables, headset stands, and so much more.
And let's be real, we've all whacked our controller. You don't want to be that guy messaging Oculus support for your own mistake or waiting weeks for an out-of-stock controller. Visit the link in our show notes now to prepare yourself today.
And you don't need to sacrifice comfort for cost either. Kiwi is constantly running promotions of 20, 25, and even 30% off.
Just visit the link in our show notes and use the promo code on their website to take full advantage of your savings. And be sure to follow the link in our show notes so we get credit and you help support the podcast. And remember, Kiwi has you covered for all your VR needs. This podcast is brought to you today by Zencastr, the company we choose to use for our interviews.
I remember that first interview we had and the stress that we went through trying to find a platform that we were going to host this on.
That's where Zencastr came in. With HD video recording and studio sound quality, we were able to connect seamlessly with guests all over the world.
I love the fact that it's as easy as sending our guests a link, they click on it, and they're connected.
With automatic post-production, secured cloud backup, and automated transcripts, Zencastr is the perfect solution for any remote podcast. If you want to make remote podcasting easy,
make sure you go to zencastr.com/pricing and enter the promo code Ruff Talk VR, and you'll save 30% off your first 3 months.
That's zencastr.com/pricing, promo code Ruff Talk VR. It's your time to share your story. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Ruff Talk VR. Today we get to talk to another talented developer. His name is Tom.
Never a dull moment talking to developers.
No, selfishly, I mean, I don't know how the listeners feel, but selfishly, these are my favorite episodes.
Yep. I was going to go down that road, but you are correct.
Yeah, we get the insight knowledge on what actually goes down behind the scenes, what it's like to develop a game. Selfishly, for us as gaming fans, we say we play a game, we go, I want this, I want that, this complaint, that complaint, or this praise. But we don't really know what went into it. So being able to talk to these developers and really figure that out, selfishly, I love this. So today we're talking to a very talented developer, guy who's kind of always up on whatever new stuff Oculus is pushing out. His name is Thomas Van Bouwel, and he's developer of the highly popular puzzle game, Cubism. So Thomas, do you mind to introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners? And in case they haven't listened to our episode of Cubism, or they've never played the game, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what your game is?
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Thomas, and I'm a VR developer, and I make a puzzle game called Cubism. And so Cubism is, like a short description, is that it's basically a simple puzzle game where you put puzzle pieces into a shape that gets more and more complex as you sort of go along in the game. And so it starts with very simple shapes, just like squares and rectangles, and then gets into more and more complex shapes as you go further along. So it really sort of applies to your spatial thinking skills. So I myself have been working in VR since 2016. I actually have a background in architecture originally, but I made the switch to VR because I was really interested in what that could do in sort of the architectural space. So I worked for a startup that was making software for architects and engineers in VR for about 4 years. But Cubism was sort of a hobby project at first that I started in 2017. And it just sort of started taking up more and more of my time. And then after I released it, I, after a few months, went full-time on the game and have been sort of updating it ever since.
So this also was this has been around for a while because we've actually been told by a developer this was one of their
favorite games,
one of their favorite inspirational, kind of help motivate them to the, oh my god, I didn't even know you could do this in VR. So I mean, you've laid some serious groundwork. Usually we wait a little while to ask this question, but I want to get right to it. But how big is the actual, are you a one-man development team?
Yeah, that's correct. It's just me. Which for the type of game, it's also, that was very deliberate, right? So Cubism is like a very minimal game. It's just a sort of empty space with just a puzzle in front of you. And when I started it, I very much intended it for it to be a weekend project, something I could do in my spare time. So that's why I also deliberately scoped it small like this. So it was designed to be able to be a one-man project, basically.
No, that's awesome. And you mentioned that you've been developing in VR since 2016. Was that your introduction to game design, or have you been a game developer much longer than that?
No, it definitely was. Sort of VR kind of came first, and sort of games kind of came with it because there was so much overlap. So as I mentioned before, I was an architect, but I was very interested in sort of interactive software and being able to use those things to like visualize buildings and things like this. So like my interest in games came very natural from that, and wanting to move into VR and wanting to learn how to develop for VR, I found that like making games and participating in game jams and sort of involving myself in the game development community was a really good way to learn, to learn Unity, to learn VR, which was all stuff that I was able to apply to my job back then. So, and yeah, that was an interest that sort of stayed with me for a long time, just because there's so many interesting people in the sort of indie game dev community, and there's so much you can learn from interacting with them and working with them. That yeah, Cubism was just like a good excuse to sort of stay involved with the game dev community, but it sort of spun out of hand, So, and now I'm a full time game dev accidentally. So,
No, well, congrats on that, because that's when
I've noticed.
somebody can do something full time that they actually loved. It's just funny. An architect, and now when you said architect, and now I'm thinking of all the pieces, and I'm
No, it
like,
makes
all right,
complete
yep,
sense.
things are starting to come together, kind of better from the mindset. But
Yeah.
I hardly would refer to it as a weekend project. There's some complexities involved with, it's pieces and spatial area, but it's got to work. It's 360-degree rotational. I mean,
Yeah, a whole bunch of different puzzles. So like something I always love. We've covered a lot of different puzzle games on this podcast, and something I always love to ask, the developers of these puzzle games is, if you were to play this game from start to finish,
oh yeah.
how long would it take you to finish all the puzzles? Because me,
yeah.
man, I
No.
need the biggest battery pack possible if I'm gonna try to do that in one session. Does it take
I
you
mean,
30 minutes, couple hours?
yeah. Only because I know the solutions for most of them. Some of them I've forgotten, so I might get stuck on some of them. But probably the first volume I could probably do in maybe 30, 40 minutes, maybe less. It kind of depends. I think the second volume, I know the puzzles a little less well or a little less by heart. So maybe it might be something similar as well. Just as I'm sort of trying to figure out, there's less puzzles in the second volume, right? But yeah, the range of the amount of time people spend solving these puzzles has been really really broad. I think the fastest time on record for the first volume was about 2.5 hours, maybe. Um, and this was also the first person to like on record solve all those puzzles. But I've also seen people spending upwards of 10 hours on just the first volume. So it really depends.
Oh, you definitely get your money's worth, but you're going to have to do some thinking. I mean, I made that clear in the podcast that it's not, it starts off, they grease you nice and smooth, get you feeling good about yourself, throw another little dimension at you, a couple of other pieces and then change it even more on you. And yeah, you're thinking.
Well, something I'll give you a lot of credit for is the atmosphere in the game. It's very relaxing.
Oh,
It's
definitely chill.
meditative. So it's not like a game. Even if you can't get the puzzle right, you're not going to sit there and get frustrated because you have the nice calming music, you have the environment. You know.
You don't get the anxiety.
Yeah. So
I
something
appreciate
I
that.
loved is that when you finish, one of the sets in the volume, you get that nice little, musical piece to go along with that. Was that you designing the music with that too, or did you outsource that?
Yeah. So I did have help with the music. I contracted a pianist, Salia Wong, and she recorded all the background music that plays as you're sort of solving the puzzles. But I did write the piece that sort of plays as you solve the puzzles. So maybe just to like explain how it works for your listeners, like every puzzle that you solve has a number of pieces, and every piece has a note associated to it. And so once you solve the puzzle, you hear this chord that's sort of comprised of all these notes, and then the sequence of all these chords is a puzzle that you hear as you sort of solve a volume. And so because it's so tied to the design of those puzzles, I ended up like writing the song that sort of goes with that. But I did get Salia to sort of record it, because I can maybe write like a simple song, but I can definitely not record it, cleanly. Like it would take me way too long to like do that properly. So I was very happy to work with her on that.
No, definitely a creative approach, though. I know that for some reason, when you discovered that, you got pretty friggin' excited about it.
Yeah, it gave me incentive to finish that set. It's not just you finish the puzzle and now,
Move on. Yeah.
little small golf clap and now move on. Like you said, you get a nice little music to it. So
Nice.
what inspired this game? What made you go the route of a puzzle game, a nice relaxing meditative game? What
Yeah. So as I mentioned, like I was really interested in being able to work on a game that was small enough in scope so that it could be sort of a hobby project, for at first at least. Um, and I was really fascinated by minimal design in mobile games. I'm a big fan of Mini Metro, or Lara Croft Go, or Monument Valley. These like games that are very simple in looks and sometimes very simple in interaction, but are still able to provide a lot of depth. And I was just really interested in what a minimal game could look like in VR. What is a gameplay type that makes the most of the medium, but is just simple and pared down enough to just be about the gameplay. Because that seemed like something that would be manageable, for one person on the weekends. So yeah, that's sort of the start of it. And I sort of prototyped it at first over a weekend, like a very first prototype. It just had all the basic interactions and just like 3 puzzles, and you could still put all the pieces in the puzzles, and that was it. Um, but it was enough to sort of prove to myself, like, okay, this is a simple concept that is fun to play, and it was enough that I could like show it to other people and see if they were having fun as well. Um, so yeah, it was really, the idea was just making, finding some sort of simple gameplay type that I could work into a game that I was able to do in the weekends on my own.
Well, simple definitely worked because it still holds a 4.8. I think a 4.8 in the store. From the time we
Mm-hmm.
reviewed it to now, it's held the 4.8, and it has gotten a handful of more, we'll say, very positive reviews and actual posted reviews. So, I mean, the feedback on it's just been tremendous. And again, I mean, early on when we started hearing developers be like, "Oh no, you guys got to talk to the guy who did Cubism. He's the guy that got me like just the ability to know that certain things that I get, and I'm not a developer, so I don't think like one, but I think it was just one of those light bulb moments where his brain realized, oh shit, this is the level we're at. This is where what we can do. And it was able to progress him to actually do his venture. So, I mean, it's amazing what foundations get laid and where it comes from other people. So, I mean, to me, you're like one of the OGs then in the VR community for real. I mean, because
Oh, that's so nice.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's the biggest compliment you can get as a developer, I think, if other people also start developing or get excited about game development because of something you've made. Is I mean, I couldn't be happier than about that. And it's definitely, when I first started and started going to game jams and didn't really feel like, oh, I can never make this switch to VR or to game development. Um, Being able to go to game jams and talk to other developers who were making their own things, like that sort of was what inspired me and got me started. So it's
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
awesome. And so what was your first experience in VR as well, game wise? Like, what was that? Everybody has that first experience that they don't forget. They tried out VR and they
Yeah,
never
yeah.
forget it. For you, what was that first experience?
My very first VR experience was on a DK1, a roller coaster. So it was not great. I mean, it was great, and I was also sick for 2 hours. Um, yeah, it did sort of sell me on, okay, VR is something that's really interesting and that could be really useful. And the first sort of experience developing for VR for me was Google Cardboard. Like very simple, but still like very accessible to just start playing around in Unity and start putting stuff on my phone and looking at it in VR. But I think the very first game that I played in VR where I felt like, oh, like VR game design can be really interesting was probably Pixel Rifts, like the original demo of Pixel Rifts, um, which came out on DK2 at first, I think. Which have you guys played this game?
That I
No,
have not.
Pixel Rift? No.
No.
Oh yeah, it's like a really cool game where you play as this kid in school and you're trying to play like a game on a Game Boy, but you're trying to hide it from the teacher. So basically, you're sort of trying to pay attention in class, but also like sneakily game on this gaming system. Um, and so they had like the developer had this demo of this game on DK2 back in 2015, I think, and that was I remember the first VR demo that I thought like, oh, this is really designed for VR and this is really making use of the medium so well. So that was definitely the first like really memorable VR experience I had, I think.
Yeah, so you guys had the luxury of my experience due to I knew better to get the like cardboard phone type VR thing. I tried one of those I think for 30 seconds and was like this thing sucks. But once the affordability, and that's why I kind of jumped all over the Quest when it dropped, was cuz this is like VR for everybody. I don't need a $3,000 high-end computer and
Yep,
tethered stuff.
that was always my limitation. I always wanted VR. I always watched videos on it. I always, stayed up to date on it, but
Just couldn't afford the luxury of good VR.
mhm.
So it's like,
Once the
Yeah.
Quest dropped, that's when I really got to experience it.
yeah, so we lucked out on like a lot of this earlier stuff, or even
Yeah.
some of the higher end ones that I still to this day haven't tried. I mean, I admit it. The Quest has fed my appetite, and I'll stay with it, I guess.
So, was this your first game you ever designed as well? Or were there some failed projects along the way?
Oh, that's a good.
Oh, no, it's definitely not the first game. So as I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of game jams before I started with Cubism, but it's the first game that I've launched commercially. But before Cubism, I also worked with another team on a game called Panoptic, which ended up being released commercially as well on Steam. Um, I did sort of a drop out of the team after about a year or two of development, just because I at the time I had moved countries and it became a bit difficult to sort of do a lot of work on this game, properly. But the team sort of carried on and has released that game on Steam, and they did a really good job of it. So I have worked on different projects as well, and one of them that has also released. But for the most part, it's been a lot of like game jams and small prototypes and things like that.
So I'm gonna ask the $1,000,000 question. Are we gonna be looking forward to more puzzle games from you in the future? I mean, the
Maybe.
success of the game is too good. Yeah, right. It's too good to ignore. So it's like,
Or are you just going to keep building more expansion packs onto Cubism?
that could be
Well,
endless.
For Cubism, one thing I still am working on and which I am excited to put out there at some point is a level editor. Um, so already there's the ability in the game to sort of mod your own levels. Like back in last October, I think. No, actually, back almost the first update after I launched the game was actually the ability to sort of mod your own puzzles and sort of sideload them into the game. And I even like published the JSON format that the puzzles are in, so sort of the code format by which you can define your own puzzles. But so it's very unintuitive to make these things. So one thing I've been working on is this level editor in VR, where you're able to sort of draw and design your own puzzles. Whether I'll like build an actual like backend for people to like share puzzles online and stuff, I'm not quite sure about that just yet. But I do want to put this level editor out there in some form, like either as a separate application or as like a beta branch, so that people can design their own puzzles and start exchanging them through side loading. In the same way you would do with like Beat Saber custom maps or something like that.
I'm actually scared to
Oh, what?
see what, because I know how the community is with stuff when you give people a little bit and then they can next level it. So I'm actually a little scared to see what people would actually come out with.
Oh, but
That's
no
why
doubt.
I'm also not like committing to a
Oh,
back end for it, or like a way for people to share it, because I'm like, I'm not sure I want to moderate, everything that people might draw in there. But for people to have the ability to make their own puzzles, I think it's pretty exciting. So
oh, I
No,
think
that's huge.
that would extend the replayability of this through the roof.
Yeah, that's
Because
my only problem with puzzle games, and especially ones that are, I'll say, the more challenging. Once I finish it, I feel like I accomplished so much to get to that point that I'm almost not willing to put myself through it again, even though, because I'm not an idiot. I mean, you give someone 100 puzzles, there's no way I'm going to remember every single one.
yeah,
So
even Thomas here, you said you don't remember every single one, right? And you
right,
developed the
fair
game.
enough.
he made the game, so it's like sometimes the struggle can be a little. So yeah, anything for replayability to me is, that's why I get excited when I see games drop updates or.
Yeah, but he referenced something I didn't even think about, which would be maybe the shapes that people draw. Maybe they would draw some inappropriate things that might be
Yeah,
problematic.
there's a
But
few I can think of.
you can let the imagination go there.
Yeah.
But no, that would be a huge feature. And besides that, are you planning more expansion packs, or you just kind of, I mean, hey,
in terms,
I
yeah,
I don't know if our viewers know this about you. I've referenced it a couple times. If there's like, Christmas stuff going on, you're on top of that. They're launching like pass-through features. You're on top of playing with that. So you're a developer who's not just sitting back and, you know, raking in the rewards of their game or anything like that. You're constantly honing your skills, whatever developer updates Oculus are pushing through. You're like one of the first people I see posting videos on Twitter. Hey, check out this what I'm doing. So
No, very involved developer.
yeah.
yeah, so besides the, sharing other, or not sharing, but creating your own maps, are you working on anything else specifically for Cubism, or just kind of playing around,
Mm.
honing your skills with, the new stuff Oculus is rolling out?
Yeah, I mean, so that's sort of the neatest thing about Quest, isn't it? Like, this piece of hardware is just getting better and better with like software updates and getting these whole other capabilities through like hand tracking and pass through recently. So the accidental nice thing about Cubism is because it's a simple game, it's like a bit easier to put these new capabilities in there. Also, just because there's not necessarily a lot going on visually, so there's a little bit of performance bandwidth left to do things like 120 hertz or pass through and hand tracking and stuff like this. So it's a fun game to like experiment with these things, and because there's not, it's like a simple game. It's usually a bit easier to sort of fold these things in as like new features. Um, I'm super excited about Passthrough. So a bit over a week ago, I launched the Passthrough update for Cubism, so you can actually like play these puzzles in your actual living room space. But I've been playing around with the Passthrough API a little bit in the last few months, and I'm very excited for the features that will be coming to it. At some point in the near future. Oculus, they have announced this sort of a system where instead of drawing a guardian space, you'd sort of map out your entire room. Say like, this is where the walls are, this is where my couch is, this is where the table is, and I'm super excited for systems like that. I really think there's like games, whole different game types that you could design around that, and I'm really excited to start prototyping around these type of systems as well. So in terms of sort of what's next, there's definitely still a few small updates that I want to do for Cubism and the level editor and things like this, but I'm very excited about um, being able to build with these new features and explore some new ideas. So
If I was Oculus, you'd be the first person I'd be giving new ideas to and be going, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this.
Yeah.
You seem to be mastering pretty much everything we can throw at you." No,
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're this involved, and we've seen it numerous times with people who have put out a game that theoretically, if
It's
they
done.
wanted to,
It's done.
nobody would say anything
Yeah,
if
there's
they just disappeared into the wind or
made a
just
new
started
game
working
or
on another project. But it's like the passion that you guys have for what you've put out is a little above I think what people would really know. And again, it's easy as the consumer to sit here and buy the end result of somebody's work but not really understand that every single day of their life they're still thinking and working
Mhm.
and making improvements. And
I'm sure you see past through and you're thinking it's not just one idea, it's 100 different ideas of, oh my God, there's so much I can do with this.
limitless
oh yeah,
potential
yeah.
where
Yeah, yeah.
again, as the consumer, we're just like, what's this pass through and what's it going to do for me?
And you
No, it's
referenced
super fascinating. I think I'm sorry to cut in, just
no
because I think
worries
that
at all.
Cubism is sort of it's nice and pass through. It definitely if you have like pets or kids or something like this, like it's nice to be able to keep an eye on your situation while you're playing and things like this. It's a nice to have, but it's not designed for it. And there's so many cool game types that you could build specifically for pass through that I think we're going to see some really interesting things in like the coming year as this feature starts rolling out. There have been like some small things I've been testing with, and usually I just try to post them on Twitter as quickly as possible, just because it's a back and forth, right? Like you can make these prototypes, but then you see how enthusiastic can people get about something, or how interested are them, and then you see if there's value in like exploring it further. But as I mentioned, like Oculus is going to come out with these tools where you can map your room, and because I was so interested in that, I sort of built my own tools to do that, just to sort of experiment with it. It's very rudimentary, but I have this like little system where I can draw out a box in my living room and sort of put the boxes around tables and couches and stuff like this. And all I've done with it so far is just replace sort of the walls with something else, a different environment. But that already feels like so compelling that you can just walk around in your actual space, and have this virtual space outside of it. Yeah, I'm just super excited to work with that in the future.
Yeah,
I love the concept of bringing the two worlds together
yeah,
in a way that doesn't kill the immersion for the VR experience.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of horror games because I'm kind of a wuss. But I think that horror games are probably where that's going to show the most. You have a demon pop out in your living room. You're like, ah.
I couldn't deal with that, I think.
No, me neither. I
Yeah.
can't do the horror and scary games. I'm a wuss. I can do them flat screen, but there's something about with the headset on. Like,
It's
nope.
the immersion.
Yep. The music going on.
Yeah,
Nope. Nope. Count me out.
What I find funny is when people have scary experiences in VR, like the one thing they don't do is just close their eyes.
Yeah.
It's like I've seen people run around rooms, run into walls, curl into balls, but never once.
How about just take off the headset?
Yeah. Close the eyes.
I took off my headset playing Walking Dead once because I was fighting zombies one way, and then I got attacked from behind, and I went, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, it's I can't really deal with it very well. So some games I can, and some games I can't. Like I played through Resident Evil 4 on Quest recently, and that was fine. Maybe because it's like low fidelity enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I once played Resident Evil 7 at a friend's house, and you have that. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but at the start of the game, you have to go into this spooky house, and like that's where I put the headset off. Like it was too much already. Like it was a little too immersive. You know what I mean? So
yep.
yeah.
No, I get it 100%.
Oh, and we're just at the for
the
everybody across
stage.
the board. Yeah, it's like the development. It's gonna get scary, like legit scary. 5 years from now, it's like the good will be good, but the scary is gonna be, I think, some next level fear.
Oh yeah. So I think I heard you reference that you design in Unity for this game, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Is that primarily what you use, or do you play with other programs too?
It's all Unity for me. It's what I've been using for games since the start, and what I used in my previous job as well. Like that software that I was working on at the startup where I worked. This was all also Unity, so it's I think most people are either using Unity or Unreal, right? So it's for me, it was when I started, I just picked this because it seemed to be the more popular one, and there were a few more resources. And I mean, it also seems right now that there was a good choice because a lot of SDKs and new features are usually first coming out for Unity before Unreal. Like Passthrough is an example, actually. So
yeah, and as somebody who doesn't design games by any means, it seems like Unity's a little bit easier for the Oculus to handle than Unreal. Unity seems to be the more popular choice by pretty much every developer we've talked to.
Yeah,
they all seem.
I don't
to
think
like
I've talked to any that are sporting Unreal.
No, the only ones I've seen do Unreal are like the big studios. Yeah. It seems like for most,
Well, you have a team of 300. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, but you can make indie games on Unreal pretty well. I personally don't have experience with it, but Puzzling Places, for example, that's made in Unreal Engine. So, and that's also a small indie team.
Oh no shit. Okay.
It's always nice when somebody has a case point to counter retort.
Well, yeah,
Well,
we're not the people. We're
Yeah,
not the we're
we
not the
talk
people
about
who
the
build
games. We don't
games.
design them,
Yeah.
by any means.
no. That's it's not a dig, but it's also a very accessible engine. It's just I think there's just a bigger audience using Unity. So um, by that fact, you can just find more tutorials online or YouTube videos if you're stuck on something. So yeah,
No,
it's useful as a developer. Yeah.
absolutely. And you referenced you used it in your past work. So I know you said you started, VR development 2016. Were you using Unity long before that too, or did you start that around
Um,
the 2016 time?
Around 2015, 2016. I think I tried it once before while I was still in university, but that was like so Unity has had many versions over the years. So this was like a way early version that yeah, it was a little hard to use. And actually, like I think an important change in Unity that really helped a lot of indie developers get their start is that in 2015, I think it was 2015, it became free. Like before, you had a free version and then a pro version, which was like the free version was pretty limited. But then they just sort of made it free. And same with Unreal in 2015, which is also sort of when I started going to game jams and started, sort of dipping my toes in the water of developing for VR. Um, so I think that's sort of the case for a lot of game developers that they got their start around this time, where it just became a little bit easier to get access to the tools.
So obviously, every developer wants their game to be successful. You want everybody to love it, but was your end game always that I'm gonna be a game developer full time and hopefully this is the one that's going to do it for me, or was this just organically like I actually didn't plan on being a full-time game developer, but this path has now pulled me in that direction?
Yeah, it's kind of the latter actually. When I first got started in VR, the thing that drove me was mostly what VR could do for architecture. So maybe a little context there, like um, the startup where I worked is called Resolve, and it's basically these design review tools for architects and engineers to sort of look at buildings before they're built and finding issues. And that was something that was super interesting to me as an architect, because I was really interested in how VR as a medium could be used to sort of improve the design process and improve communication around the design process and make it more, human centered. Instead of looking at a building when you design it from this abstract perspective of a plan or something like this, you can look at it from a human perspective, right? And actually like walk through it and find these issues that you wouldn't see otherwise. I thought that was like a super fascinating problem, and that was definitely my first drive into VR. And games were just sort of this hobby that I enjoyed doing, and that I had a lot of like friends that were making games and stuff like this. So it was just interesting to stay involved with that. The switch to like full time game development kind of came after Cubism launched, even. So it was this hobby project for a long time, and then at some point, like close to the launch, I was doing like 4 days for the startup and then 1 day for Cubism. Um, and I sort of kept at that for maybe 2 or 3 months after the launch, but then I just felt there's like too much to do with Cubism in the updates I wanted to do. Like for example, I launched without hand tracking, and I wanted to do a hand tracking update, and I knew that was going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time. So just going full time just made more sense to be able to sort of fully dedicate my time to this game, and to make the updates as good as I could make them. So, and I really enjoy making games full time now. Like it's very lucky I can do this. But yeah, uh, it almost feels selfish to say it, right? It wasn't like the driving force between like to get like a full time to be able to work full time on a game. It's just something I'm very lucky to be able to do. Yeah, so.
No,
No,
I
hey, I've had somebody very successful tell me before that when you chase the money, oftentimes you end up with nothing. When you do it because of the love, money will
success will
come.
come.
Yeah,
Yeah, success
Right,
will
right.
come as the
yeah.
result of doing stuff you love.
Sometimes when
Absolutely.
you chase the money, you cut corners because now it's not profitable, whatever. Versus just fuck it, do it because you love it, and then people are gonna buy it because it's a great product, and then you know,
Yeah, and I think people are smart enough to see through shoddiness or, jankiness, or I personally haven't. I think I struggle to find somebody that even has something bad to say about the game itself.
no, it's one of the most popular puzzle games for good reason, and like I would love to do the pass-through mode more with this game, but you created such a beautiful atmosphere with it, with the nice ambiance and the music. It's like
Why bother?
I almost don't, then I'm sitting in my bedroom. It's like, all right, I think I like the ambiance more,
Okay.
But
It's at
so
least like it's been a good response now for because sometimes people ask like, oh, it'd be nice if you could have like a beach environment or something like this, and I always sort of deflected that before, but now I can just say you can just go to the beach and put on Passthrough and
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Once they have updated hardware with color pass-through, that's going to be the absolute game changer. But so since
Sure.
you become a full-time developer, do you still game at all, or is it one of those things where you're developing with it so much, the last thing you want to do is put on a headset and go play the latest craze?
I do game. I try to at least. And I kind of find that for the most part, I mainly play VR games. It's just nice to see what's coming out on the store. But it's just I don't know. It's just also the funnest games, and it's also like the convenience of the convenience of the Quest is sort of similar to the convenience of like the Switch or something. You can just grab it and play something real quick. Where on PC, I don't know. I don't want to like set everything
Turn on the
up and-
PC.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Deal with the crash to desktop. Oh my God, why is this not working?
There you go. Yeah, Quest is so much easier. And it's also like if you just want to like hop into a game for 15 minutes and relax, like there's so many good options on Quest, and you're just fully immersed. Like it's perfect. I think so.
No, I wish people could see the amount of dust on my consoles since I got the Quest.
VR has killed my
P-
love of PC and platform gaming.
Yeah, I could still do it. It's still fun, but like
I do
okay.
it to fall asleep. That's messed up.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. It takes, at this point in time, I'm pretty spoiled with console gaming. We've hit a pretty high level with it. Oftentimes it's, I don't know, there's nothing new about it. There's nothing that really, there's no wow factor versus I put on a headset, press power, and then simply picking something up and looking at it is even fun. You're just like, wow, look at the detail on this object.
Yeah,
like
staring at your hands in a game.
Yeah.
Just looking at your hands.
You pick up a box of cigarettes and you're like, wow, this game's so cool. It's like that would be unbelievably boring in a console. But yeah, in VR,
Right.
everything is just so much more fun.
Immersion.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I agree. Being able to just, put on a headset, no wires, nothing, no setup. It's a game changer. So what games have you been enjoying recently?
Well, as I mentioned, I recently played through Resident Evil 4, which was I had never played it before, so it was actually my first time playing that game. And yeah, that's a lot of fun. It really is having a campaign, like having a full game like this. It is quite nice, And I get it when people say like, "Oh, we need more like AAA games." Like, yeah, okay, it is kind of nice to be able to sit down with something like this and then sort of enjoy it for a long time. Yeah, there's other than that, like just games to sort of jump in and relax. I really like Walkabout Mini Golf and Golf Plus. Like they're both like really good games to if you want to just meet up with a friend and have a chat or something. I think that's like they're perfect games for that. If I just want to like relax a little bit, I really like Carve Snowboarding. I think it's a bit of an underrated gem on the Quest. It has good sides and bad sides, but like just have you played this game?
No, I haven't, but I have.
It's on our ever growing list of games.
Yeah.
We go to chip away at this
Yeah.
list, and for some reason, it seems like we review one game, and now all of a sudden, there's two more games
The
on
list
the
gets
list.
bigger and bigger
Yeah.
and bigger.
But it's
The
definitely
story's growing, yeah.
we've had a lot of people recommend it on our subreddit. It seems like everybody who plays it, for the most part, loves it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's definitely on the up to the top of our must play.
It's one of these games that gets like game feel, right? Like when you're just going down the mountain with like these soundtracks that you find in the game. You find these like mixtapes, and they're really good songs usually. So you can just throw on a mixtape and go down a mountain and do like time attack. It's super relaxing. So it feels great to play.
Oh, I'm always amazed at what I enjoy in VR versus what I enjoyed outside VR. Like on console gaming, PC gaming, I always liked single player RPG experiences. That was always my thing. I wasn't really a huge fan of golfing in real life. Not that I disliked it. It's just I never really did it. Didn't play much ping pong. you know.
Right.
But I do these things in VR and I freaking love them. Same thing with puzzle games. I didn't play a whole bunch of puzzle games on consoles or anything on that like that, but I put on a headset. I've loved every single puzzle game I've played.
Hmm.
And it's like it's you in VR, it's drop all prior preconceptions of what genres you like, what you like in a
Right.
video
Yeah.
game. It's a completely whole new thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. For example, I wasn't that big into shooters either before, but like actually, I kind of enjoy like, it is also just something nice to jump in and have a bit of fun and just
No,
let off some steam. Shooters in VR, there are a lot of good ones.
no, I'm
So
I'm the same exact way. I hate
yeah,
shooters on consoles. It's so boring to me. I can play like one round and I'm like done. Meanwhile, me and
yeah,
him
yeah.
play Population 1 every single night.
Oh
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got
So
to do
It's
a
been a
few
while since I
rounds.
played, but that was one that I played a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, when we first got that was way too addicting.
yeah.
Way too addicting. I like the fact that you play the Walkabout mini golf. Great game. Golf Plus. Great
Yeah.
game. Great studio.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
no, and those all have that really good social aspect of them too. So
mhm.
that's one thing
yeah.
I've noticed compared to like, and I'm not knocking other online communities, but the VR community is a lot less toxic than the overall communities I've seen with other games. You just get crucified going into
Yeah.
going into any sort of chat with anybody. Where people in
Oh
VR
sure.
seem to want other people to do well and have fun, and maybe still take an ass kicking now and then. But
So
Yeah, yeah.
so Thomas, remind me, when did you launch your game onto the Oculus Quest store?
hmm that was September of 2020, so it's been out for a bit over a year.
Okay, nice, and still pumping
Yeah,
out updates. So if you don't
yeah,
mind
doing
telling
well.
us, what was that process like? As your first game, you're publishing and everything like that. What was that like getting it onto the Oculus Quest store? I don't think there's App Lab yet or anything like that. So
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this was back in the day where you had to submit a pitch documents to Oculus, right? Like when they first launched the Quest One, they said like, okay, we're gonna curate the store, but to try to get on it, you have to send this like little PDF where you sort of pitch the game to us before you even start developing. Um, and that was their way to sort of choose who, sort of pick and choose who could get onto the store or not. Yeah, so I remember submitting that, I think in January of 2020. Um, Sort of a Hail Mary. We'll see what happens. And then it got accepted after I think like 3 or 4 weeks, to my surprise. But it was great. I mean, it was also like the big motivator to go and finish the game. As I said, it was sort of a hobby project for a long time, and like the thing with hobby projects that you do on a weekend is that you never really know where to like put the finish line. So now there was like this really good reason, right? Like they accepted it on the Quest store, and then they sort of assign like an account manager to you, and you sort of coordinate with them. Okay, when do you think you might be able to launch it? Like what you still have to do for it. So it's sort of this organizing force of like, okay, let's make a list of what needs to be done, and what features can be cut, and that really helped sort of work towards the finish line. But yeah, so that was a very very busy year because it was still like a hobby project, well, a weekend project for a long time of that, for a lot of that sort of those final months of development. Um, but it was very hectic, but it helped like organize things a lot and sort of prioritize things a lot too. Like one of the big things that needs to happen in those last few months was sort of playtesting the puzzles. Like one of the more difficult things I found with the game is sort of getting the difficulty curve right with the puzzles, because people's how easy or how difficult a puzzle is very different depending on who's playing. So it's really hard to evaluate like what's a good order of puzzles, so people don't get too frustrated too quickly before they're sort of hooked on the game to sort of want to spend more time on like the more difficult puzzles. Um, so I was organizing a lot of playtests and sort of doing a lot of like data driven puzzle playtesting, where I was just gathering a lot of anonymous data on the average solve times for puzzles, or um, the average solve rates, or how many moves people would make to solve a puzzle. So I would get this sort of broader view of like, or a more objective view of like, okay, this puzzle is really difficult or this puzzle is really simple, which really helped me sort of organize sort of the first campaign, the first volume. um, yeah, that was a lot. that's where sort of most of the work went in that final stretch of sort of finishing the game before launch.
I love that. Nobody's really everything. It sounds like with Oculus is that they're just very professional at what they do, and they want everyone to succeed when they come on board with putting a game in their store. It's not like, I don't know, their review process seems to be pretty legit, even
Mhm.
in today's standards.
Yeah, the only criticism I've heard anybody have is, stuck on App Lab, but that's,
That's a different
that's
subject.
a
We
long
could go on all
conversation
day
anyway.
about App Lab.
Yeah.
That one irritates the hell out
Yeah.
of me. It's not
But
fair.
overall, what's the process been like to work with Oculus, in the lead up to getting released, but also post release, with these updates. Um, and what's the feedback been like on the Quest versus, on Steam?
Mm. Um, yeah, so uh, the game has been mainly successful in Quest on Steam and Rift. Honestly, there isn't much of an audience, so I do try to keep those games up to date as best as I can. But it just makes more sense to focus on Quest because that's honestly probably like 98% of the audience. So, but yeah, working with Oculus has been really good in my experience, at least. Like, obviously, like even though now I have like like a developer relations manager and things like this, like somebody to talk to, I still don't know everything that's going on. Like I usually still find out, new features or new headsets as they are sort of announced. So it wasn't something where suddenly like all the doors were open and suddenly I knew like what their roadmap was for for the next year. That's definitely not the case. But they've been really really supportive and helpful, and I have a really good like DevRel manager, and she's been really helpful in sort of being the liaison between me and like the other teams in Oculus. So yeah, they've been really great, and they've been really supportive actually in the last few years as well in terms of helping promote the game. Like they sort of helped make a new trailer for the game, which is live on the store right now. It's this mixed reality trailer. So yeah, that's super nice of them to sort of work with me on making stuff like that. So
Well, I think that's just part of producing a good content. You're
Well,
you're
no, and
up to date on new features. You're pushing out a good product. I think that's what Oculus looks for.
no, and I love hearing that they're not as. I mean, yeah, it's a corporation, but you got to
mm,
figure every single game developer has their own liaison assigned to them. That's their go-to person. I mean, they're involved. It's like
Yeah, and you got to I get why they don't suddenly open up the doors to
10
every
million
single
people.
developer on
Yeah,
their official store. Then
yeah,
all of a
yeah.
sudden everything's leaking out suddenly.
no,
Which I can
it's a
also get why it's frustrating for people stuck on App Lab or something. Like I mean, I think they're continuously like improving their greenlight process and figuring out how to do this better and how to like curate content more efficiently. But yeah, I mean, everybody makes mistakes or sometimes good things get missed as well. But they are pretty good about. I do think they like figure out which games are growing an audience or are doing something special and sort of getting those people onto the store themselves. Like it's yeah, my experience has been pretty good.
Yeah, I know people love to be hit and trendy and talk crap about Facebook, or should I say Meta and whatnot. And it's like,
meta.
oh, evil Facebook, whatever. But
Yeah, yeah.
realistically, from my experience of observing VR, it really seems like Oculus has the best interest of the VR industry.
Everybody.
It's not like they're just sitting here screwing over indie developers or anything like that. They seem like they actually care about VR.
So we haven't had a developer say
Say a
anything.
single bad
Yeah,
thing.
like, hey,
And it's
there's a
not
real
like this
headache.
scared, like, no,
No, because there was some
Yeah,
honesty
yeah.
with the amount of legwork that they had to do
yeah,
and improve marketing and then future and but that's the reality of the business. That's what people need to hear. It's like this is an up and coming side of the industry, which is kind of my lead into the next question that I've always got to ask a developer now is I see there's going to be more and more interest into the world from all different angles, from professional to gaming. What's the best advice you could probably drop on somebody? And I'm sure you'll probably get this a million times in your life now is like, hey, I want to grow up and design in VR, like what's the best advice? Is it school? Is it just, hey, Start watching those online videos. I
Go
mean,
do Unity tutorials.
yeah, I mean, and I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
encouraging
yeah.
people not go to school or whatever, but I mean, in all honesty, like, what's the
Yeah.
best approach?
There's no one one direction to like making games, right? Like the nice thing is that all these tools are now available, so you can just like download Unity or Unreal and start working on stuff. And that's definitely like something I would recommend. Like if you want to make games or want to work in VR, just start making small games and follow a simple tutorial. And if you can, try to do some game jams and hackathons and start working on tiny projects. But for some people, it's easier to like follow a course or go to school, and that's still for game design, and that's still a valid path to sort of learning those skills as well. But I think the important part, whether you're like teaching yourself or following a course, is to make stuff. I think, and to like put stuff out there. Like if you make a tiny game jam game, put it on itch.io, tweet about it, put it on Reddit. It's it's going to help you like sort of get feedback early on the ideas that you're putting out there, and sort of help you learn, okay, what's a good way to communicate about my game, what's a good way to see whether there's interest for the game that I'm working on or the idea that I want to work on, because I think that's just as important a skill to hone as like game design itself is talking about your game and putting it out there. So
The marketing,
The marketing.
the
yeah, I love
aspect
that.
nobody, everybody hates it, but it's necessary evil in every industry.
Well, you know what's crazy? It's just like anything else also in life is there's people who have made games, but will never go that next level to let anybody see it because
Yeah,
they're
to
never
publish it.
pleased. It happens in all businesses, even podcasting. People will do podcasts, but they'll never release an episode because they're scared to go over that hump. What are people going to think, or what are they going to say, or are people going to judge my game? Where that advice you
Right.
gave is, start creating content,
And just publish it.
and get it out there,
Yeah,
and
yeah. And you never know what comes out of it. Sometimes some things will stick and some things won't, and you can learn from all of it. And definitely doing game jams. I mean, because I started doing this pre-pandemic, so it's very different giving this advice now, and I don't quite know like what the best approach is in the new worlds. But pre-pandemic, doing game jams was super helpful because one, you get to work with all these other like talented people with very different backgrounds and very different talents, and you learn how to work and coordinate with everyone. You learn how to like pitch ideas, and especially with game jams, which are usually 48 hours over a weekend, you learn how to like scope an idea. Like, okay, we have to finish this in 48 hours, so it's got to stay simple and it's got to stay focused on like one idea or one like core concept. And then the best thing about game jams is also that they end, right? Like after 48 hours, like you're done and you get to move on to the next project. So you get to sort of all the good and the bad things, you can leave those behind and take those learnings to like the next thing. And I think that's being able to quit your first few tiny projects is an important part of learning, I think, as well. So
I think that's the perfect answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So Thomas, besides designing games, constantly, working on the new features pumping out, what do you like to do in your spare time? Is it play other games like we were kind of talked about before? You like to hike. What are some of your hobbies besides just game design? Or you just,
yeah,
all crabs in the bucket, that's it. You
yeah.
design games morning to night.
Yeah. No, yeah. So I really enjoy games and designing VR and stuff. Like it was a hobby before, so it's now that it's a full time job, you gotta like remind yourself to do other stuff as well. But I like to hike. I like to travel. Yeah, I like to visit museums or play music. I play a little bit of guitar. Play a little bit of piano. So yeah.
Nice. That's
I always take notes on take notes on, I guess.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget because in my head, all programmers they're stuck in a box somewhere. They're programming, so it's the real life touch of nah, man. We like to more and more of developers, I think, actually enjoy going outside more than people who don't
Yeah.
do game development who
Yeah.
force themselves to stay inside. Because I've had many an answer be like, "Oh hell no, we go outside, we go on
hike.
picnics,
Hiking is like one of the most
picnics,
common
we play
answers.
golf." And I'm like, damn, half my friends don't go outside,
Yeah.
and half as much as the people who are like putting out content, that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
That if they were stuck inside.
And
No,
honestly,
really.
like before I was working as an architect, then games was sort of the hobby and the thing that I try to like associate myself with or like get involved with in my spare time. Now it's sort of the reverse. I I work in VR and stuff, but being able to go see buildings and visit things like that's that's the thing that's interesting now. Like to try and do in my spare time. So
Yeah, you still have a soft spot for architecture.
yeah, for sure.
You that would be a really fun VR game
Yeah, I was thinking about it
already.
The minute I heard, yeah,
I'm really excited
architecture.
for City Skylines. By the way, so
Yeah, I saw that was announced like a month and a half ago. It's gonna be fun
right, yeah,
to build like that, but to actually be able to block by block build. Nonetheless, we're going down a whole different path. So
yeah.
Thomas, the developer life is busy. We're hitting almost an hour. That's usually about the time that I like to aim for. Before we wrap things up, because I know you guys are busy as developers and stuff. We appreciate you taking almost an hour of your time to come on here as well. But do you want to promote your game a little bit before we wrap it up? Again, let our viewers know the name.
Yeah, sure.
What platforms it's supported on. I know there's not too many people using the Rift and stuff like that, but let them know what headsets it's
There's
supported
still
on.
someone out there.
Yeah, maybe some online
Yeah.
communities you have going on, anything like that.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, the game is Cubism. If you like puzzle games or just want something to like relax with, or you're looking for a simple like introductory game for somebody who's just starting with VR or with games, I think it could be a good option. You can find it on Steam and Rift, and you can also find it on Quest. And if you play it on Quest, you can play with experimental hand tracking or in Passthrough. Like the most new features are going to be on Quest. So if you have the options, definitely check it out on Quest first. And yeah, if you want updates on the game on Twitter, we're Cubism VR, one word, or you can find me To Van Bo. That's TOVANBO. And that's usually the first place that I post updates about the game, or like gifs or stuff from the development or any new prototypes I'm working on. That's where you can find it.
No, and I'll say anybody who uses Twitter, he's definitely a fun follow, because if Oculus pumps out a new feature for hardware, I've said 100 times,
He's already on it,
dude. Within a week, you'll be check out this. I think I saw you posting like maybe like a week ago. You were like dragging the Cubism box like in the pass-through zone onto your table. You're like, look, now I can make it interact with real objects in the real world. I was like, dude,
Right.
this guy is always on it.
That was a hack, just to
Yeah,
just
that was
to,
probably part of
clarify
your
it. Yeah.
that was part of
But
with your mapping tool, right?
Well. So this is anticipating Oculus's mapping tool, actually. So right now, if you set the floor level of your Guardian space to your table, this is the hack. Like you shouldn't do this, but for Cubism, if you do that, you can drag the puzzle down, and like the menu will lay itself flat, so you can actually interact. It's not super consistent, but you can interact with your hands on the table and get that sort of force feedback. But in the near future, when you're able to map out your room, you should be able to just drag it, keep your Guardian normal and just drag down the puzzle in any surface and play it like that.
It's a genius hack, though.
Yeah, no, like I said, anybody who's on Twitter, if you want
Not that you should do it.
if you want to see some cool development tricks and some whatever features are pumping out, Thomas is the guy to follow.
No, we put Cubism as
appreciate
a must own. It's a must own, game to have in your repertoire of experiences, especially like he had mentioned. You get somebody new to VR, they might not. The roller coaster killed my stomach the first time I did it. That was my first ever VR.
Which I've heard a lot of people, that's their first one, because
Yeah,
it's
not
free.
the one to go to. Take more of the Cubism route,
Yep.
where use the brain more than the stomach to try to enjoy the experience. But no, it's been awesome to just talk to the developers.
Yeah,
I'm in awe every
I
time. It's
appreciate it.
like you guys are some of the most humble human beings.
Yeah, just
Pump
super
out
casual.
some of the
Like,
greatest.
I'm just one guy, It's normal. Just pumped out a very successful
some of
game
the
on
best
Quest.
content we've ever gotten to experience are studios, all less than 10.
No, and I'm definitely excited for any other future games that you pump out. I understand if you don't want to talk about any ideas that you got going, but I think as we see hardware grow and also the software with more features, I think future games from Thomas are going to be a must watch.
Oh my god, yeah.
I really appreciate that.
So yeah, thank you again.
If I have any new prototypes, I'll let you know for sure.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You drop anything, or you're ready to talk about anything, we'll have you back on in a in a
Oh,
heartbeat.
I don't care what the
Nice.
genre either. Could
Yeah.
be anything. It's like, you know, that the technology is going to be used, and this is somebody who, you know, again, has made something that could have been we'll just leave it alone, it's fine. But
Yeah.
nope, I know that I can do this now, so screw it, I'm going to do it. It's like, come on, this is good.
All right.
This is real good.
So
really appreciate
definitely so if you've played Cubism, like we always say, be sure to drop it a 5-star review on the Oculus Quest store. You know, that helps the developer so much. And if you haven't played Cubism yet and you like puzzle games, that's definitely a must own. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, you know, today's episode, and check us out Wednesday where we're reviewing The Climb 2. Another good little, I
Nice.
won't say relaxing. That's the
Little
opposite
scary.
of relaxing. That's a
Yeah,
make your
anxiety
hands
driven.
sweat, but
You need Cubism after that
to go to bed.
It's a good one. It's a good 1-2 punch like that.
Yeah. All right. So stay tuned for Wednesday, guys. Podcasting remotely can be a challenge. And when we first began interviewing developers, we ran into every headache imaginable.
From connection issues to video lag to sound quality performance, we knew there had to be a better platform we could use.
That's where Zencastr came in, allowing us to easily connect with guests all over the world. Zencastr is simple to use with no download needed. With studio quality sound, HD video recording, automatic post-production, automatic transcripts, and a cloud backup, Zencastr is the perfect solution for any remote podcast.
If you'd like to have the same easy experience that we did for all your podcasting and content needs, then make sure to go check out zencastr.com/pricing and enter the promo code Ruff Talk VR, and you'll save 30% off your first 3 months.
That's zencastr.com/pricing, promo code Ruff Talk VR. Zencastr, making remote podcasting easy. Hey guys, Dscruffles here. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you listen to. And definitely don't forget to check out our official subreddit and join us there at r/RuffTalkVR. There you can join a community of other podcast fans, join us for some podcast meetup games, get first scoop on new episodes, interact with us a little bit directly, and more. As well, be sure to check out our official podcast supporter link, the Buy Me a Coffee link you can find right in our show notes, where you can donate to the podcast either one time, multiple times, you know, become a monthly supporter. You know, that way you can help us on our journey to make podcasting a full-time gig so we can continue to bring you more great podcasting content. As well, be sure to visit the Kiwi Design link in our show notes as well, where you can go and shop for different Oculus Quest 2 VR accessories, whether it's knuckle straps, lens protectors, face shields, whatever. Kiwi has you covered. So again, visit the Kiwi Design link in our show notes, help support the podcast, and pick yourself up some sweet Oculus Quest 2 gear.